Hi, it's me, Kamilah Rose, and I'm back with another video for the Bliss Institute. And today we're going to be talking about the much anticipated ancestral healing with shadow work. To get started, go ahead and subscribe to this video. To begin, I thought it would be important for us to establish a little bit of foundation, because shadow work does have a psychological foundation, and it's good to always know where things began before we get started on the work that we're currently going to do. Here's a little bit of a theoretical framework for us to work from. Shadow work is a concept derived from the psychologist Carl Jung within his personality theory of the psyche. Our psyche is the totality of our being, both conscious and unconscious. It's self-regulating. It's the psyche. It moves towards individuation through the process of finding balance between the elements of the self while also allowing space to grow and expand. So according to Jung, one part of the self is the ego. And our ego is consciousness. It is all the personal acts of consciousness. It's our actions and our behaviors. It's our awareness, our identity. It's our conscious understanding of what makes you and me who we are. So the ego rests in the field of consciousness, and the field of consciousness is limitless. It includes, of all the things that are known that we have some type of awareness of, it's all the conscious parts of the self, of course, as field of consciousness, until it comes up against the unknown. Once it reaches that part, we begin to explore some different aspects of the selves. How we interact with the world ranges across characteristics, and these can differ between some known, well-known concepts such as extroversion and introversion. Jung was the one who created these ideas of different aspects and characteristics of the personality, and this is how we eventually have landed with our understanding of the Myers-Briggs personality test. Most folks have some understanding of where they range in these different characteristics. I myself am an INFP, introvert, intuitive, feeling, perceiving person. And these characteristics can range in many different ways. And the test is often free, so if you're interested in finding out more about your specific personality type, you can just Google it, and you can often find a test that'll be able to give you some understanding of where you might fall in these ranges. There's also this concept known as complexes. And complexes are kind of what Freud would have called our ideations, or the things that we become fixated upon. In complexes, you're dealing with these topics or these areas that kind of keep coming up, and we become a focal point. These areas become a focal point in which we are dealing with some of the aspects of our understanding of who we are in relationship to how the world works around us. As we do this work on understanding the unconscious, we begin to see some of the drives and the understandings of what makes up these complexes. In the unconscious, which is at the edge of that field of consciousness, we begin to see the personal unconscious. The personal unconscious is going to be content that's acquired through our lifetime, through our memories, our experiences, our knowledge, our feelings and thoughts, and this might be knowingly or unknowingly. So we might have some type of awareness that we're going to be taking in this information, and we might not. This might be something that is just completely, it's an intuitive. This might happen knowingly or unknowingly. And from there, we move from the personal unconscious, which is something that's specific to our experience and to what we are gathering into our world of knowledge of the self, to the collective unconscious. And you may have heard this term used. And the collective unconscious is the behavioral blueprint that's inherited from those of us who have come before us. So it's a great way, we're starting to segue into seeing the connection between doing shadow work and working with our ancestors. From here, we see that the collective unconscious is an inherent mode of being, along with our reactions, within us that are shaped by our culture, our history, and our family. So we have that personal and we have the collective. We have what we're experiencing here in the now that we're gathering up, this working unconsciously, and then we have this more long range understanding of information and ways of being that come from a collective standpoint that we've learned over time in our journey as beings in relationship to our family, traits, behaviors, thoughts, and feelings we've picked up over time. Archetypes can be symbols that represent concepts within our cultures which can be explored through myths and stories. And these contribute greatly also to the collective unconscious. This is why I work with the gods and goddesses of life and death, as their myths outline many ways that we can utilize to address our complexes and our shadows. It gives us a way to touch point in stories or tales that we can understand, in which we can make these connections, and we can use this to bring light and bring an awareness and understanding to what's going on in our own lives, and possibly also give us some direction or insight into what we can do to move forward and to heal these areas and to integrate them as we move towards complete individuation. So the shadow is the easiest portion of our conscious to access, as it can be inferred from the contents of the personal unconscious. A definition of the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable effort. Bringing the shadow to the surface or conscious into our consciousness means we recognize the darker aspects of the personality as present and real. When we're looking at the shadow and we're looking at this idea of the ego and the personality, we can begin to understand why there are some things that, while it may annoy us so much, we might actually need these aspects. Our ego tries to protect our idea of ourselves. And as we build this conscious idea of ourselves, the things that maybe we've decided perhaps we don't want to be so as aligned with, because from the collective unconscious, from our personal unconscious, we've witnessed that these are things that go against our survival. And so we begin to tuck these characteristics or aspects of ourselves away into the unconscious, and it becomes a part of our shadow, still influencing, still a part of the self as a whole, but instead of it being a part of our active consciousness or being played out actively, we are suppressing it in a way that it begins to work upon us unconsciously. So as we do this shadow work to begin to bring these unconscious motivations and the shadow to the forefront and into the conscious, it might cause a lot of shifts. And again, that will activate our ego self to protect us. But once we begin to understand that the things that we do in our shadow are the same things that we do to protect ourselves in our consciousness, we can befriend these aspects and understand where they need to be actually actively, intentionally applied and recognized in order to fully be integrated and to act from both our conscious and our unconscious. Shadow work is an essential aspect of self-knowledge and therefore often calls into place a lot of resistance. This work is best done as a marathon and not as a sprint. As such, we should give ourselves some time, compassion, and support to do this work. The shadow is an emotional nature, its autonomy, obsessive, even possessive quality. Where our adaptive skills are weakest, our emotions can be the strongest, and strong emotional responses reveal the basis of our weaknesses. So this leads to the importance of recognizing our projections. And I'll cover this aspects and how to work more with all of these different concepts in a workshop in September. For now, let's take a look at step 1 of shadow work. Particularly focused on ancestral healing through shadow work. The first thing, of course, is going to be recognizing the shadow, finding out what it is. How do you know what the shadow is for your family? So the first thing you have to look at is, who is your family? This doesn't just have to be blood relatives. This can be anyone who becomes a part of your family system, your understanding of these are the people that I reach out to, these are the people that I depend upon. For many people, this will be their immediate family that they have a ancestral connection to, and for some folks, these will be chosen family. Take a look at all of it as far or as comprehensively as you can. You'll want to figure out, first, you'll want to figure out who are the members of your family. Find out names, birthdays, characteristics, pictures if available. To do this, you might want to speak with family members, speak with family friends, maybe check out Ancestry.com. Use any means through which you can access some of this information. Often some of these things will be public records, such as birth certificates or death certificates and census data. You'll be able to go through public records and find this information out as long as you have some type of foundation to work from, whether that's a first name or a birthday. While you're doing this, you'll want to look at who is not mentioned. Are there family members that maybe they're avoided? Maybe you only hear a short bit about them. Make note of these. It's just an interesting point. Often things that we would associate with characteristics of the shadow, such as things we are ashamed of, things we are afraid of, or things that we're just trying to put aside because they have unsavory characteristics or components, or they've done things that are not approved of by the family. Those will be the folks that maybe you won't hear as much about. And if you know that, you've heard maybe one or two things, so you can find them on your family tree in some shape or form, it's good to just put a little asterisk by those places. Now again, while you're going through this, you're not wanting to rip your family apart or cause a lot of tragedy or triggering, so just be mindful. That's why we're going to put asterisks by some of these individuals to return to later if we would like to, but to be conscious and mindful of while we're asking questions, while we're finding out these stories, to be mindful of our family and maybe the things that they are maybe not as willing and open, and that might cause some type of rift between you and your loved ones when it's unintentional, by bringing them up and exploring this. Let us be intentional in how we approach this and in the moves and in how far we go with this particular topic. Second, you'll want to ask for these stories. You're going to want to find out, what were they like as a child? What was their favorite thing that they've done? Do they remember any of their favorite foods or colors? Anything that you can find out about these family members that you've identified, try to find out as much as you can. Make it fun. Make it a part of maybe just telling tales around the family, or if you're having Zoom meetings, everybody kind of gets up and throws something in there to say about this particular person. And catalog and make note of these things. You're also going to want to see if maybe there are some stories that start to come up and then, they're kind of hushed, or like, oh, we don't need to talk about that. We don't need to go there. You can press a little bit, but if people seem really reluctant to go into these stories, let it go. Maybe it's for another time or another place. Any of these stories that you can find out about folks are going to be the key to this shadow work. It's going to give you this foundation to start to work from, to actually see the behaviors, the feelings, the ways in which your family has operated over time. Let us be mindful, though, that this is going to be based off of other people's interpretation of these individuals if these family members are no longer alive. And even if these family members are still alive to tell you these stories, this is still going to be coming from their perspective that will be filtered through their ego and through the rest other parts of their self. So this might not necessarily, these stories won't be the same across the board. We might hear different versions, we might hear different things, and maybe perhaps in putting all these stories together, we'll get a little bit close to the truth of what happened. But truth is subjective at times. Next, you want to review these stories and look for themes. So now you're looking to see, have there been situations that have popped up over and over again? Have there been stories that sound strangely familiar even though they're being told about different people? Do folks have the same opinion about well, they did this because our family should be seen this way. Our family, these are the values of our family. These are the behaviors of our family. This is the expectations of our family. And so this is what happened in this situation. See if there's things that you start to see starting to happen over and over and over again. Then you'll want to look and see, are these themes present or relevant in your own life? And then once you've done that, you'll want to look at, are there any emotions associated with these themes or these topics okay. Next, you'll want to see, what are the emotions these themes or topics bring up? Do they make you feel happy? Do they bring up feelings of joy, of pleasure? Does it feel a little strange? You feel uncomfortable? Maybe you feel angry, or you feel like you are just overwhelmed in taking in this knowledge or finding these connections. Just write down the emotions that are associated with these different themes and these different stories. Then you'll want to look at, what is your relationship to these emotions? You want to see, do you find yourself having blockages or experiencing difficulties with these emotions? And maybe even make a note of what situations in your life bring up these emotions. And then lastly, once you've kind of gone through these themes and these emotions are identified, you'll want to journal, meditate on each of these aspects. Bringing the shadow to the light is the first step in shadow work. When you become aware of the gifts that your shadow has for you, you can change your life. Doing this work removes the projection that what has happened to our ancestors is separate from what occurs in our own lives. This allows us to recognize and integrate the shadow of our heritage, which can become ancestral trauma, generational trauma over time. If you would like to work with me further, I will be offering a Ancestral Healing through Shadow Work workshop in September. I'll also be offering a Connecting to the Dark Goddess, Embracing the Shadow course in October. Course information and registration will be available soon. Now, this is a lot of work. This is a lot to get started with. Take your time. Be gentle with yourself. This is a marathon, not a race. If you're seeing folks talking on social media or in your own personal life about how they're doing all of this shadow work and they're really making headway and they're feeling really great about it, and you feel like it's taking you a lot of time, just sit with that. That might be its own part of the shadow for you. This is a time to center yourself. This is a time to center what's going on with you and what's happening within your family, to understand how all these things are connected. And with this will allow you to really start to make some headway into some of the areas in which you're really wanting and feeling passionate about, but just feeling like you're not making the progress you would like to. Let's go and find the gold within the shadow. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about this video, this topic, what you've done as far as shadow work, what type of ancestral healing you're interested in, and what you're hoping to get out of participating in this. I hope you have a wonderful day. Know that you are loved. Know that peace is available to you. Know that we can get this work done. I will see you later. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.